Hello, everyone. If you are watching this video, that means that you have already watched your two AP Classroom videos. And then you've moved on to do your notes on three works of art that we'll cover in total, two in this particular video, and then one in your next video. This is the sarcophagus of the spouses. This is number 29 on your class notebook, so please fill in the notes on that. And this is an Etruscan work. We'll talk a little bit about how the style that we see here is definitely very Etruscan. A couple things should pop out at you when you see it. The kind of coy smile, the eyes, the braids and the hair, the chin being so sharp are all going to identify it as being Etruscan. This is from 520 BCE. The other thing that identifies it as being Etruscan is the fact that it's terracotta. Many Etruscan works were made of terracotta. Okay. Take a moment and get your ID info. Okay. So again, painted terracotta. Terracotta is simply clay that has been fired. So that means that this is very similar to other Etruscan sculptures. This work was modeled, not sculpted, meaning that you would have formed the work into this shape and then you would have put it into a fire pit. This one likely has four pieces, the legs on the couch, and then the two main pieces of the legs of the people, the figures, and their main focus, which is the bodies, right? So that work on the right upper right is your best piece. It's a full length portrait with very broad shoulders and braided hair. Again, this is very stylized in an Etruscan manner, so we'll see this kind of face on many of the figures. But it also should look somewhat like, based on the time period, 520. We are in a very similar time frame to the Greeks, and we're within that time frame of the archaic Greek world. So certainly we have some trading of cultures, and so we see some of that archaic Greek influence in the Etruscan work. The function was probably used for funerary purposes or decoration. It likely represents a married couple, and their ashes were probably placed inside. Okay. The content, this is likely a banqueting scene. So you can see that they're reclining. They are on a single dining couch. They're sharing that couch, and they are probably eating and drinking. Both figures' hands seem to be outstretched as if they were holding something in their hands, perhaps an egg to symbolize life after death, being held by the man, and maybe the woman is holding something like a jar of perfume, or a pomegranate, a reference to the afterlife, right? The Hades. The couple reclines against wineskins, which look somewhat like pillows, and the wineskins are making a reference to the sharing of wine at funerary functions. The man and the woman are clearly embracing, and this does show their equality, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with the context. The Etruscans were a people who gained power in mid to northern Italy between 800 and 700 BCE. We don't know that much about them except for what the Romans wrote about them and their funerary remains, which we have a couple of. They were taken and slash absorbed by the Romans around 510 BCE as Etruscan kings became Roman leaders. So the two cultures eventually just merged together, and many of their practices were absorbed by the expanding Romans, including some of the gods and goddesses, which were taken into the pantheon, as an example. Painted terracotta played a key role in the culture of Etruria, and this work would have been an elite commission, especially with the size of it and the difficulty of sculpting, especially the two main body pieces. Okay. Etruscan funerary art also included painted funerary tombs, which we'll see in a second, and they would depict scenes of revelry, so perhaps representing a funeral banquet that would send the deceased off into the afterlife, or perhaps to reflect the notion of perpetual conviviality in the afterlife, right? So like this could go on forever. Okay. Etruscan women had many more rights than Greek women of the time, and this statue supports this idea. So you can see the Greek the Etruscan woman and the Etruscan man are seen on very kind of equal footing. All right. Okay, make sure you get down your notes on this, and you're going to answer some multiple choice questions about the work. Okay, your next work of art is the Tomb of the Triclinium, which is in Tarquinia, Italy. It's Etruscan, and it was made in 480, between 480 and 470 BCE. This is around the transition period of our archaic to classical period in Greece. And this particular work is made from tufa and fresco. And again, we're in Italy for this work. Tarquinia is a city in Italy. Very vibrantly colored, lots of patterning, flat figures, yet still very static. Okay, so this work was made from tufa rock, and what happened was tufa is pretty soft, so it's soft enough where this has essentially been carved out of the ground, so it's made into a kind of a tumulus mound. The walls are painted in fresco, which means that the wall was wet for the painting. The figures in the picture are dancing and reclining to eat a banquet meal. You can see, so the work on the left here is a close up of what's going on right uh, here, or maybe on the other side. Yeah, but it was something dancing. And then here you can see the banqueting going on in the background. The ceiling does have a checkerboard pattern. We'll talk about why that might be in a second. And flat figures, very lively and celebratory. Function, this was a burial chamber underneath a tumulus mound. It's found in an Etruscan necropolis. There are several of these tombs. We know much about the Etruscans because of their tombs, but we don't actually know that much about them in life, unfortunately. Oops, sorry. Pause and get down your notes for form and function. All right, the content. This hints at the cheerful burial rituals of the Etruscans, celebrating a last meal with the deceased, perhaps. Funerals were often seen as a celebration of the dead. Trees and shrubs in the background, right between the dancing figures, show the perhaps reference some kind of rural setting, right? So maybe they're in a tent that's been decorated. The checkered ceiling might represent the fabric of that tent, right? And so that's another clue that maybe they're replicating whatever the funerary celebration was. Again, we only really know about the Etruscans from these burial mounds and what the Romans wrote about them. This work is named because its frescoes feature 3 couches in a room, which in Greek and Roman houses would have been called a triclinium. Tri for 3 couches around a table. And remember, the Romans specifically reclined while eating. They may have learned that process from the Etruscans, or they may have both shared that process. It was a single large chamber. This is the whole of it, and it might have held something like the sarcophagus of the spouses. Okay. Take a moment and get down your notes. All right. Now we have some review questions. Yay.